Good evening, dear parents and guardians. Welcome to this enlightening session we have planned for you today. First of all, congratulations to you all on the exceptional achievement for your children having qualified for the EI Asset Talent Search examination. Your participation today not only enriches this virtual gathering, but also reinforces our shared commitment to the academic growth and success of our students. Amidst us, we have a distinguished panel of experts, including Sridhar Rajagopalan, Savitri Sreevalsan, and Vishnu Agnihotri, each bringing a wealth of experience and insights. So let me begin by introducing to you Mr. Sridhar Rajagopalan, who is the co-founder and Chief Learning Officer of Educational Initiatives and earlier co-founder of Eklavya Schools, Ahmedabad. Sridhar has been described as having helped change the way student learning outcomes are seen in India. He is the first patent holder of EI MindSpark, one of the world's most highly rewarded personalized learning software. He has been a part of a number of state and national education committees in India, including the Expert Committee for Parak and CBSE Safal Steering Committee. Moving on to Ms. Savitri Sreevalsan, the visionary behind SAGE, initiated a journey 15 years ago, establishing a reputation as a reliable solution provider for schools. SAGE's offerings, from world-class assessments to capacity building programs and academic insights, reflect Savitri's commitment to enhancing classroom instruction. With a belief that cutting-edge EdTech empowers educators to shape future classrooms successfully, Savitri has been at the forefront of education innovation. As SAGE evolves, the team under her leadership excels in administering assessments and orchestrating workshops for gifted students. A bibliophile and a vegan with a heart for animals, Savitri lives by the mantra, kindness never goes out of fashion. Finally, we also have Mr. Vishnu Agnihotri, co-founder and academic director at GenWise, which is a founding member of the Gifted World Network. After a corporate career of 14 years, he entered the field of education and was Vice President Assessments at EI from 2005 to 2015. Vishnu has been working on programs for gifted students since 2015 and has been the academic director for over 10 residential gifted programs. He has presented his views on curriculum for gifted students in various international conferences. He also has extensive experience in e-learning, teacher training, and socio-emotional learning in adolescents. So rest assured, parents, you are in great hands today. Before we dive right into our session, I would like to let you know, you can feel free to contact us on the number mentioned here. Do write to us on the email address. The registration link is shared here. Feel free to scan the QR code. During the session, we welcome your questions in the Q&A chat box. Please type your questions and we will take it up with our panelists. Be rest assured that the FAQs will be answered and all the details will be shared with you on chat. So, Sridhar, let's kickstart this with you. I want to know, isn't every child gifted?
Yeah, excellent question, Lipi. So we are often asked this question that, we are doing gifted programs and we are identifying certain children and, people say every child is gifted, and it's absolutely true. And we should just understand what we mean here. So every child definitely possesses some gifts. Some of those gifts may be outside the scope of academic work, obviously. Like, for example, someone is musically talented or talented in sports. And somebody may be talented in some other way, which is not a usual thing. For example, they have an ability to collect some kind of things and see some patterns there. Or they are excellent at narrating stories. And these are not ways that we say that, okay, a lot of kids are gifted in a particular area. So that is the first point, that giftedness comes in many different forms. The second point is that what we are doing in programs like these is we are also looking at the ability of the environment to support this kind of giftedness. So, when you have a very young child, I think it's true to say that this child has the ability, and a lot of research shows this, to become like really gifted in one area. But as children advance, as children are reaching the 7th grade, the 8th grade, partly due to their own efforts, partly due to the supporting environment they get, you do have certain kids who excel in specific areas. One way to look at this is to think of an Elon Musk or an Einstein, what kind of sets them apart? And is there something that we can do to identify these children at a young age? And that is what this gifted program is. So that's how we say that every child is gifted. But for these two reasons, we try and specifically focus. And now all over the world, there are gifted programs like these. Countries are taking it up. So that's the difference between this kind of a gifted identification and this core belief that every kid has these talents and has the potential to be gifted.
Very, very interesting to know that. But Sridhar, we know that about ACIT. ACIT is a 23-year-old diagnostic assessment. But even ATS is 14-year-old from what I understand. So what is the difference between the two?
Yeah, again, a good question. And I know that sometimes people get a little confused between these two. And so let me explain that. And we'll be talking a little more about ATS in detail in the webinar today. But just to quickly explain, ACIT is a benchmarking diagnostic test. In the UAE and in some other countries, it is a mandated test for certain boards of schools. And so a lot of the parents here, would be well aware of ACIT. It's being taken by schools as a whole. And the purpose of ACIT is to be a test that every child can take. It's not a test meant for only the gifted children or very bright children or something like that. It's for every child. Its purpose is to provide diagnostic feedback. That means these are the areas the child is weak. These are the areas the child is strong, so that the child and the school and the parents can help the child become better in those areas. It's not a test that is to get you admission somewhere or to say that you have passed something. It's a test to give you feedback and help you improve. That is ACIT. ATS, or Asset Talent Search, is a higher level test. It's also an ACIT test, but for a higher class, with the main purpose of identifying gifted children. So that's the difference between the two of them. One of them is a test for all children for grades 3 to 10, whereas that is ACIT, whereas Asset Talent Search is for grades 4 to 8. It is a higher level test. It is only written, it can be written only, we invite only the top 15% of performers in ACIT. All of you who are here because you've received this invitation. So ATS is a giftedness test for children of grades 4 to 8 who have qualified by doing very well in ACIT or some other tests like CAT4 and so on.
So I'm going to park that thought of top 15% students qualifying and come back to you, Sridhar. Vishnu, my question for you is, what is giftedness?
Right. Yeah. So Sridhar did talk about it a bit, but let me put some numbers and statistics there. As Sridhar said, every child is gifted in a particular way, in the sense that every child has gifts. And maybe there are some unique things which we've not yet spotted. But when we say giftedness, we are talking about children in the top 1 to 3% of a particular domain. Right? Now, why is this important? There is no need to specially identify gifted students unless we are going to do something for them, right? The reason we want to identify these gifted students is because they need more coaching, they need more exposure, they need more opportunities to develop their potential talent into achievement, and you have to do it in a certain age window. So for example, if a child is very good at music at a young age, or a child is very good at sports, we don't think twice about sending them to a special coaching camp. But somehow when it comes to academics, and whether it's math or language or history or whatever, we don't think about this. We think, oh, okay, this child is doing well. Maybe, they can do a couple of higher grade textbooks and stuff like that. But that doesn't really work, because that is not really challenging children sufficiently. It's not showing them how a mathematician or a scientist or a writer is actually working. Therefore, it is the top 1 to 3% of children in a given domain or any individuals who are known as. So that is what we mean by gifted. So every child has gifts, but only 1 to 3% are really gifted. And the reason we are identifying them as gifted is to match the right kind of educational opportunities for them.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I'm going to now direct to Savitri. You've been very active in Dubai and UAE, right? Are you seeing potential for gifted programs and giftedness in Dubai? So that's one question. I'm also going to, club it with another, and you can share your thoughts around it. The EI ATS made it to the headlines of Gulf News Report, which is the local newspaper, on Monday, 11th of March. And I would like to know from you, how are the children of UAE expected to perform in a test like EI ATS?
Yeah, thank you, Lipi, and good evening to all our viewers today. I'll take your second question first. The very fact that it was featured in the newspapers here will tell you that it was a significant event, right? Do you know how many students actually wrote the EI asset this year? About 115, in fact, more than 115,000 students wrote it. So we have a huge number of qualifiers also. So once again, congratulations to all of those students who are in the top 15% of asset. They have qualified. So, and I'm very sure that they're all going to perform brilliantly like they have in the past several years that EI ATS has been in the region. Regarding the second question, the first question that you asked, what is the potential for the gifted programs here? Of course, there is a huge potential. We've actually done in the past a couple of day scholar programs here in Dubai, with the venue being GEMS Modern Academy. And we've also done a session for Sharjah Emirati children gifted session. So why not? The potential is huge. What do we do with all of these students identified from here? We do these programs, right? Not necessarily in India only. We can explore other areas also where these gifted programs can be done.
Thanks, Savitri. Sridhar, we parked a thought earlier about, students being in the top 15% of asset who have qualified for the EI asset talent search. How big a deal is it to be in the top 15%?
Yeah, great question. This is one of the challenges I find that both children and parents face. I'll give you 2-3 examples. There used to be a program on TV some years back called India's Child Genius. And, there was a child who won that competition, who became the child genius. And when the parents and the school was interviewed after that, they all said, we knew he was a bright student. We knew he was an above average student. We didn't realize that he was so bright. This is a very, very common feedback we get. Many of these children who are performing in the top 10%, 15%, people think, okay, they're good students, a bit like what Vishnu said. If they have musical talents, you know what to do. But if they are just they're doing exceptionally well, first of all, we don't realize, what is top 15% versus top 30% versus top 2% and so on. But literally, it's like saying that 100 kids are taking the test, and we have now identified those in the top 15, which is quite a remarkable thing. So the first point is to say that this is something to celebrate. And I'm happy that you started with the congratulations slide, because I think that's the first step. The second step is that what do we now do about it? How do we kind of hone this gift? How do we help them and support them? So I think the point is that this is not a small achievement. It's a lot of kids. There's a combination of natural talent and effort. And that effort is not that they prepared 3 months before the exam. That effort is that something that they have been doing over many years with the support of school and teachers. But I think that being in the top 15% is a truly remarkable thing, which is both cause for celebration and appropriate action.
So this is like a lot of interesting facts, and I'm very fascinated to know, how this is forming a very niche set of students, right? But tell us how do you identify these gifted students? Also, we've heard of IQ. Is this an IQ test? Is it similar to that? How is it different from an IQ test? Can you elaborate the whole process of identifying giftedness?
Yeah, definitely. Let me do that. And since you want me to elaborate, I'm going to actually explain it in some detail with some slides. And, we are also talking about, and I don't know if some of you are a little confused about the 15% and the 1% and so on. And that's what I'm going to try and explain here. And, the title of this slide actually says it. It's a big milestone, but only the first one. So it's like a remarkable achievement, but for the next steps. It's not for us to sit back and say, wow, we've made it. And what do we mean by that? So all the students have written the asset test. That was step one. But this is only step one. And the next step is you also achieved a part of step two, right? Which is that you have scored in the top 15%. I don't know if all of you have downloaded your qualifier certificates. This is what it looks like. You should go to the website and do it if you have not done it. You have qualified for Ei ATS. That's why you're here. That's why, a letter has gone to your school with your name and you've got that letter. This next step is to write the Ei ATS, which happens at the end of this month. This allows you, now this is where you are going to move from 15% to, if you come in the 15% of the next test also, the Ei ATS test also, that means you're in the 15% of the 15%, which is literally 2.25%, and if you remember, Vishnu said 1 to 3%. That is when you become what is technically called gifted, and we call it an asset scholar. Even there we have gold, silver, and bronze scholars. So that is the next step. Are you able to make it to that? And if you're able to make it to that, you then go to the next step, which is it kind of opens the doors for a lot of giftedness programs. As of now, the programs for this year are in India and the US. But, looking at the numbers, I think like Savitri mentioned, we will again do a program in the UAE, maybe next year. So this is the journey. And you've taken a very important step that only 15% have taken, but these are the steps ahead. This is where you are part of the way there. So this is to give you an idea of the journey. And then you asked about identifying giftedness. This is not an IQ test, right? IQ is a way by which, and I would say in the past, it was a method by which you kind of looked at certain types of questions and you looked at how are children doing. There have been issues with IQ. One of the issues is that it is found to have a cultural bias, depending on language and background. Certain types of students from certain backgrounds actually score lower. That is one. And there are other issues with it that I'm not going to go into. The method that has been found to be scientifically valid, and literally for the last 40-50 years, some top universities like Duke University and Johns Hopkins University have been doing this research. And they do basically a set of steps, which is to focus on children in certain age groups, typically the middle school. And in those age groups to do higher level tests in specific subjects that children learn. So if the children are doing maths, and all children do maths and science and language and so on. So in these areas, you give a higher level, a challenging test, a test which is 1 or 2 or 3 years higher for the children. And those who are doing very well on those tests are the ones who are identified as giftedness. There's a whole article on this in Nature, and it's a freely downloadable article. And all of you should read it. You should download and read it because it'll give you tips about children and what you can do and what you'll probably be able to relate to some of those stories as well. So this is about identifying giftedness. Like I think Vishnu briefly mentioned it, this has to happen in a certain time frame. So we say that the 4th to 8th grades is the best phase to identify talent. And that's why it's not a coincidence that Ei ATS is for children of classes 4 to 8. And grade 6 to 9 is when you actually do the gifted workshop. So a class 4 child may get selected. They may kind of come in the top 2%. But we don't do a residential workshop for them because we still see them as a little small. It's a kind of it's a kind of a sign that the child is headed for giftedness. So this is the time frame to keep in mind. And the reason is that too much smaller than this, you cannot even identify the giftedness. The children are still picking up the knowledge. And too much older, they don't have that the flexibility to kind of get the inputs and to be molded with some of the inputs that happens in some of these gifted programs. And that is why this is a kind of a window that we should not miss as parents. Now, The other reason why this whole process is important, you have to see this as a process. Don't ever see this as, wow, my child is gifted, celebration, end of story. No, it's a process. It's a process where the child is moving along. And the reason for that is above average ability is what you're testing, correct? I mean, that's how they got to the top 15% of asset. That's how they may come to the top 15% of ATS. That is one piece. There are two more pieces that determine giftedness. One is creativity or originality or an original perspective at some of those problems. And the third is task commitment, which means nothing but perseverance, sticking to the problem. And some of these, as you can imagine, have to be developed. All of them have to be developed, I would say. But some of them kind of come naturally, but all of them can be developed further. And that is where the process is really important. So that is the whole point, that giftedness needs exposure. It needs nurturing. One of the mistakes we make is that we don't give exposure. So what is exposure? Can your child interact with other children who are like this? All of them may not be interested in maths. Someone may be very interested in music. Someone may be very interested in language. But when they interact with each other, they kind of, one, they see that passion. Two, they probably work together. You are good at this, you are good at this, let's do a project on this. So because of this is a unique opportunity to get selected, to go through this experience, to learn from not just peers, but even especially the faculty who focus on working with gifted children. So yeah, I mean, a long, elaborate answer, like you said, but I think that is why this whole process is a slightly long one and an important one to go through properly.
Yeah, thanks, Sridhar, for that. This also makes me wonder, and Savitri, this is directed for you, because we are talking about EI ATS. Is it the only test? Are there other tests like the ATS in UAE for gifted children?
Yeah, so I won't say for gifted children. There is another test. EI ATS continues to be the test to identify identify the gifted students. There is another test which all schools are mandated to take, which is the CAT4. That is more in the nature of identifying potential and demonstrate the potential via the attainment towards the end of the year. So yeah, we do look at CAT4 scores. Schools that don't use asset, like international schools, use the CAT canine score of 9 to nominate their gifted students for the ATS. So yeah, that's CAT4 is the only other option that I am aware of. And of course, we've just started the League of Logic. I don't know how many of our audience have actually taken the League of Logic, but that is also a good gateway to the ATS to identify giftedness.
Right. So all of these help us to get into ATS, but none of them are like the ATS, which help in identifying giftedness, is what I understand, right? So Vishnu, one question for you over here is, what about countries like the US or other countries? How do they identify gifted students? What is the method followed there?
Right, yeah. And I just want to add something to what Savitri said, and like what you were also saying. While a test like CAT4 or even ASSET, it's a good test. It might show you potential, but it's at the grade level. So what we are taking is we're taking those top 15% of students and stretching them out across 100 points, right, to see where they stand, because now you need to discriminate at the highest ability. And this is what many of the programs in the US do. For example, if you see how Northwestern Center for Talent Development or Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth, they have their own tests, which are also above level tests. Some of them use the preliminary SAT, which is basically the SAT test taken a couple of years earlier. So again, it's an above grade level test. And if you look at the SAT and ATS, I would say a lot of the abilities tested are quite similar. I see a parent in the Q&A box has talked about, why aren't you testing history or art and craft or some other subject? Now, art and craft is out of this because we are checking more academic giftedness here, and these methods don't work for that kind of creativity. But coming to his question about why are we not testing history or political science or something, what research has shown, and that Nature article talks about it quite nicely, which Sridhar mentioned, there are fundamentally verbal ability and mathematical ability and spatial ability. These three explain nearly 75 to 80% of the variation, right? I mean, between a gifted student and say non-gifted. And I know I'm using technical terms here, but basically what this means is that there is a very strong linkage. So for example, if your verbal ability is very high, it almost predicts that you will do well in history, for example, right? And if your mathematical ability is very high, it predicts that spatial ability also you are probably going to do very well. So typically these two abilities, whether they're measured by ATS or a test like SAT, at a level above the child's grade, they are very good predictors of potential. Like as Sridhar said, predicts your ability, but then of course you have to get exposure and do a lot more. So that is broadly how giftedness is identified, especially for identifying educational opportunities which match the requirements. There are other ways of working on giftedness, but these are for niche purposes. For example, there is a Johnson O'Connor Foundation. They will half a day, they will give you tasks, they will observe you, and they will charge you almost $1,000 for it, right? But these are very niche for particular purposes. Most major gifted programs will use above level tests, and that is what works best.
So what the Ei ATS, what it's doing is quite similar to what has been followed in the US.
Yeah, very much. And in fact,
countries.
yes. And in fact, I think Sridhar, you was talking about, right? The ATS idea came from Duke University, which had already worked in gifted education for 30 years. And when they used the ATS students to have them in their camps, they were extremely happy. They felt that compared to all their other methods, the ATS students always did extremely well in their courses. They could cope extremely well. So I would actually say that while ASSET was always a great test, the idea of ATS, it comes from these organizations that have done it for a long time. Yeah. And the one thing I want to point out is there is also a practical benefit of using ATS. If you were to not take ATS and you want to go into a Johns Hopkins program, then you have to take their SCAT, or there is Northwestern as a different assessment, Purdue Jerry has a different assessment. So one convenience is you take one test and it gives you access to 5 or 6 international programs.
Right. So honestly, if I could just go back in time and write this test, I would. But Sridhar, I as a parent really want to write this test. And if I qualify, I would further want to also attend these programs. However, the timing is such that I have my vacations planned and I also have booked my tickets. What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very common question we get. And, it's like the earlier example I gave when I said that a child who is in the top 10% and parents say, I know my child is above average, but I didn't realize he was so good. In the same way, people don't realize how special this is. Like, we are doing this program. Schools are reaching out to us and saying, how many children from my school have registered? Can we please talk to them? We've done sessions in schools at schools' request because schools are keen that, more children get this opportunity. I mean, the whole of UAE, frankly, they have a gifted program. By the way, Saudi Arabia, we're talking about tests elsewhere. So we came to know that Saudi Arabia has a talent test done by the government, which, UAE doesn't have or India doesn't have. But there is a nation level test. So countries and schools are saying that, I want to get these children and identify them and develop them. In that context, sometimes parents say, oh, we have a holiday planned and we should not. So I just want to say that, this is a very unique opportunity. It's not something that everybody gets. Your child has qualified for it. This is worth it to kind of get this opportunity for all these reasons. Take the higher level test to understand where you stand, do the gifted program to interact with peers, to kind of not just interact with peers, but to get a chance to work on problems the child will find challenging. A lot of these children who've gone to these programs will say that in class, I'm not challenged at all, but here I was really challenged. And I was later on told that I'm doing a college level course, which is true. So yes, that is why please, holidays
So it's worth
can
relooking
happen
at
later.
my travel plans, if any.
Yes.
Okay. So Vishnu, coming to you, my child might get selected, and we might qualify for the summer program and other workshops. But are we doing all this just for a certificate or a medal? Also, is there any kind of support that these gifted students are provided with after these programs?
Right. Thanks, Lipi. I'm probably going to share my screen because I would like to show a couple of slides as well. Right. Yeah. So I want to first of all say that while the medals and certificates are important, the reason they're important is because they show you a mirror, right? Like Sridhar said that you may know you're good, but you may not know how good you are. And now you have an opportunity to know this at a pretty young age, at the age of 12 or 13. Now, why should you know you're good? Is it to sort of then, rest on your laurels and, put up your collar and say, okay, I'm so great? So that's not the point at all. The point is that if you know that you're in the top 1 to 3% of a particular domain, it gives you direction as to what to explore further in the next 2-3 years, and it ultimately points a direction towards your career. So that is a much more important reason than any certificate or medal. And let me elaborate in the next 2-3 minutes on what I mean. So these on this slide, you see all this Northwestern and Johns Hopkins and Summer Institute for Gifted and ATDP Berkeley. Now, some of these people have been doing these programs for 30-40 years. So why have they been doing these programs? It's because it's proven test of time, right? So Terence Tao, who won the field, youngest person to win the Fields Medal, which is the equivalent to the Nobel Prize in Math, or Mark Zuckerberg or Sergey Brin. So many of these accomplished people went through such programs because it's sort of opening up the entire world to you. You are a big fish in a small pond in your school. Suddenly you come out here, you are with all these very gifted students. They are challenging you, you are challenging them. So at the tender age of 13 or 14, you are actually getting exposure, which it is not possible to explain this in tangible terms, right? So let me talk a bit about what happens here. One part, of course, of this program is the challenging college level program. I don't like to call it college level program in the sense that it's not a college level program that, oh, okay, I am doing college level calculus again in a procedural way and stuff like that. This is college level in the sense that it's very intense. In 3 weeks, you're doing about 100 hours of this academic work, which is equal to 1 semester of college. But the course is done in such an enriching way. For example, intro to engineering design via bicycles. Now, many of the children here are probably riding bicycles. But do you know the physics, the engineering of the bicycle? Can you take it apart? Can you put it back together? Can you understand the relationship between torque and power and how all these things happen? So even IIT BTechs do not understand some of these things intuitively. So this whole thing is to give children the chance to really work with the best in the field with a lot of experience, whether it is economics, whether it is cryptology, whether it is math behind Google Maps, Amazon delivery. So you're doing 100 hours of stuff with a person who's a mathematician or a writer or whatever, and you're learning to think like that person. And typically you would interact with such a person for 1 or 2 hours in a session. But here, 21 days and 21 nights you're getting with someone like this. So it's a very unique opportunity. But it's not just about this course. It's also a lot of fun. You are doing music, you're playing games, you're learning how to collaborate in the evenings, on the weekends. So you're finding your tribe, right? So many gifted children, they feel a little disconnected in school because there are not other children with the same interests or with the similar ability. So now when you're there together, it's a very, very sort of invigorating environment. So these are really the benefits, right? And I just want to quickly talk about this slide. So as Sridhar pointed out that yes, you have above average ability, maybe on the top 15% or top 2 or 3%, but that does not mean that you can already achieve. You have to translate these gifts into achievement. And so initially we look at potential, then when you look at developing competence in the middle school and early high school years, so helping students find themselves by coming into camps like this, by doing online courses, by finding your tribe, peers of similar ability, by working with challenging tasks, learning to fail. Because when you learn to fail, you develop psychosocial skills, you learn to persist, you learn to work hard, you learn to take strategic risks, which is the bottom circle here. So once you've developed this competence, you are able to take on mentorship, internships, and really then by the time you go into a top college, you are really in a position to excel. And by excel, I don't mean just score high grades. I mean perform at the highest level you can in that domain. I very quickly want to share a quote by Paul Graham, who's a YC Combinator is one of his firms, and Paul Graham, they grant out funds to entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs who come into the thing. And Paul Graham was very surprised at one time. He said that these young bright people from Harvard and Yale, they don't ask me how to make a great product. They come and ask me, how do I make a presentation to a venture capitalist, and how do I do this and that? And he was very puzzled. After a few years, he realized that the issue was they had just learned to crack the system and crack exams. So, and that can only take you so far. Finally, when you're in the world of work or research, you have to learn to think on your own, you have to learn to collaborate and excel. So that is what this is about. So if you're the kind of parent who's looking at something like this, then this is very much something you should do. Give your child a clear pathway, let them make an informed choice, and really help them to achieve potential. And I cannot stress the strong psychosocial skills. These children are in a device-free environment. They are with other gifted peers. They are with really good teachers, and they're learning to be independent and challenging themselves. So finally, yeah, so there are testimonials from many students, but I briefly want to share Ashar Kaul, who came to a few of these gifted programs. He's today in King's College, London, studying law. And he says that these programs were learner-friendly environments, extremely focused on honing the skill sets of similarly abled students. There was an approach towards mastery. The skills are picked up are perennial, not perishable. So you will find that many children write back to us saying they're in college or they've started working, but they fondly remember when they were 13, 14 years old, they came to this program and how it literally transformed their view towards learning, and it motivated them to achieve. So finally, I just want to say that apart from these courses, whether the complementary course, and we'll talk about that later, or these summer camps, there is also the Gifted World community. It's open to everyone. You can join it now. But for the ATS top 15% and for the ATS scholars, there are special benefits out here. So here is a community. There are weekly blog posts, fortnightly challenges. There are live online events. So a lot of the questions you're asking in the chat box, they get regularly answered in these forums and through the blog posts here. Yeah, so rather long answer, Lipi, but yeah, thank you.
But very insightful, Vishnu. And, our parents are very curious. We have a lot of questions, while our team is also responding to a lot of them. One question is from Ms. Aviva, who's asking us, I'm sending my child for the Gifted Child course happening this year in July. She qualified for it last year in grade 6. Is it worth it to send her for gifted course if she qualifies for grade 7? So Vishnu, do you want to take that up?
No, absolutely. You should send her for the gifted program, no doubt about it. And I would encourage parents to take ATS every year if they can, if not at least twice, because what happens is that this giftedness can also change. So your child may have done very well in grade 5 or 6, but things may change by grade 8. So at the minimum, take once in grade 5 and 6 and once in grade 7 and 8. And if you can take it every year, it's great. I also want to add that do not be disappointed if your child does not come in the top 15th percentile. Your child is already gifted and there are a lot of other resources and courses. But yes, it's absolutely worth doing ATS multiple times. And gifted program, I would say that maybe in the younger years, you can send them to the camp in India because it will be more comfortable for Indian children. And once the child is older, I strongly encourage you to send them to the Johns Hopkins or Northwestern kind of programs, because it's unparalleled, the kind of diversity in those programs and the kind of exposure you get. Yeah.
Thanks, Vishnu. Savitri, tell us that, you mentioned about 115,000 students wrote ASSET this year, and I'm sure that we have a proportionate number who qualified for the ATS. Why are we not doing these summer programs in the UAE? We'd love to have it there.
Yeah. So we do get lots of requests for the residential programs because some of our gifted students who qualified have visited India and taken the program there the last couple of years. And we've done day scholar programs, like I mentioned earlier. We've done day scholar programs in Dubai and in Sharjah. But obviously the intensity, all of that, the rigor of having participated in a residential camp, no, that hasn't yet been done here, but we are in talks with partners to see how this can come about. And very soon we'll be able to share some positive news. With this year's residential program, the gifted program will be in Manipal. At least the GenWise one will be based in India. And maybe this winter or probably next summer, we can look at having something here. And we will share that information as and when we get it crystallized.
I think our parents will look forward to that update, and we hope we can make that happen soon. Sridhar, coming to you, parents have a lot of questions, and I'm seeing the chat box pour with what is the test about? How should we prepare our children? How can we register? Is there a center? Is there a coaching, past papers? And I know you mentioned a lot of these already, but if you could just go through in detail, and then we can take up a couple of more questions.
Yeah, certainly. And again, I'm going to share my screen because first thing I want to show you is the website. So if you go to ats.ei.study, a lot of what we spoke today and a lot of more information, apart from things like downloading your certificate and all, are there. You can also register for it. We will show the QR code here. So a lot of the information, who are the partners, everything is there. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'm going to answer many of those points now too. This is the website again, ats.ei.study. Now, this is a kind of a bird's eye view, and I'll just explain it. This is the roadmap, and as you can see, it starts from now and kind of goes till July, which is when summer programs are. So not everybody is invited to write the ATS. You have to perform in the top 15% of ASSET, the top 15% of the League of Logic, which is in any of them, if you're in the top 15%, or if you're in the top, if you're in Stanine 9 of CAT 4. So students who kind of meet any of these criteria are eligible to write the ATS. Now we are towards the closure of the early bird registration. Early bird registration closes on March 15th, which is 2 days from now. So there is an early bird closing. There is a regular closing, which happens in a week from now, March 22nd. And there's a late closing, which happens on March 27th. The difference between these is that there's a free course available if you go on early bird, which is not there in the regular registration. And there's an extra fee in the late registration if you miss this, because it's very, very towards the end. The test itself happens on March 28th to 31st. And I'll tell you what the test is and so on. The results will be announced on April 7th. The awards, I'll talk about that a bit. That will be on May 11th. And the summer programs are in different places, different colleges, different programs, different durations, some of them broadly in the 2 to 3 week range, but different durations. And that's why there isn't one date. It depends on where you choose to go. The summer program is a separately paid program also. And it's a residential program. Some of them are non-residential also, and India and US. But just wanted you to understand this broad timeline before we go into the details of some of them. Now, the first is that, especially now when we are saying this, the early bird registrations are until March 15th, which is day after tomorrow. So if you register for early bird, then depending on whether you are in the lower classes, in classes 4, 5, 6, or in the higher classes 7th and 8th, you can choose, when you register, you can choose your free course. So these are 4 courses for the senior courses and 4 for the junior classes. The topics are clear. So there is something on Gen AI, data analytics, financial literacy, economics, as well as similar topics for the junior classes. So look at the thing, look at your interest, and register for one of them. So this is the main benefit, because you have to plan for this. The course themselves this free course is in August, which is different from the summer courses. So this is the registration part. Now let's talk about the test itself, right? It's a higher level test, meaning that children get a paper which is 2 classes higher than their level. Don't worry that the children find it difficult. They will not find it difficult. This is our experience of 14 years. The children who have already qualified in the top 15% actually perform better than the 2-year older children who are taking this test. So don't worry for it. You don't have to prepare. We'll come to that part. It's a computer-based multiple choice question test. Okay. And therefore, you can take it from anywhere. Most children just take it from their home. It is online proctored. That means that there will be somebody, the child will not see the person, but the person is able to see both the child's video and the child's screen. And that's why you must have a working webcam. The test is a test of understanding and critical thinking. You are not going to have, it's anyway an MCQ test. You don't have to write anything, but it's not going to ask you what you remember. It's not going to ask you for definitions. It's going to check for your understanding. No negative marking. 3 subjects, English, Maths, and Science, 60 minutes per subject. The test dates I mentioned, end of this month, March 28th to 31st. What does these 4 dates mean? It means that you can take the test anytime during these 4 days. You cannot break in the middle of a test. You can't say, I'm going to do 15 questions of maths and do the 25 questions later. But you can take maths test, and then you can come back and take the English test after 2 hours, or take it the next day. We recommend doing 1 test per day, so you come fresh for each test. So that is the details about the test itself. You can actually see here the number of questions and so on. Already mentioned this, that you must be in the top 15 percentile of EI Asset or Stan 99 of CAT 4 or top 15% of League of Logic. If you have got a letter and if you have been invited and you're here today, you are already meeting this criteria. But in case there are others who meet these criteria and you want to share it with them, this is the eligibility for writing the EI ATS. You have to register for it. Don't on 28th, if you say, oh, the test is on 28th, I've come, and you haven't registered, you will not be able to write the test. So you have to register before the test. Register early, because there are advantages of that. But there is also a regular and a late registration. The test is available over 4 days, and you can take it as per your convenience. Now, some small points just for your information. Each student who has reached this stage, by being in the top 15%, you already get a qualifying certificate. If you have not downloaded it, you can go to our website, you can scan this QR code, enter your PAN number, which is available with your asset results, and get your certificate. You must have a computer, or which is a laptop or a desktop. You cannot use an iPad, you cannot use a mobile device, and that's because of the way the web camera works. You must use a desktop or a laptop which has a working web camera. So if you don't have a working web camera, it will not let you proceed. So please keep this point in mind. And a mock test is going to be available a few days from now. We will be announcing, it will also be there on our website. So, you will have enough time to test out your device, just get comfortable with the, frankly, all of you already know this because you have been taking asset tests But if you still want to, you're doing that in school, you may be doing this at home. So all that you can test by doing a mock test. So that is also something that is available and will be of use to you. And a very interesting part that I should not miss, which is that doing very well on ATS is a huge achievement. So if somebody who is the person, every classes 4 to 8, in every class, the topper will get an iPad as the first prize, an Apple Watch or a tablet, depending on the classes. The smaller children will get an Apple tablet, and the older children get an Apple Watch. And similarly, the third prize is a Kindle or an Apple AirPod. So these are literally the best of the brightest. You know, if these are the children who are really having a lot of potential, and you know, this I think is a small reward for that. But for all the others who come in the 15% of the ATS, they get a medal, a gold medal or a silver medal or a bronze medal, depending on the actual performance, and a certificate. And we will have this event in May in Dubai, where we will be honoring all these winners. So yeah, I think I hope I answered those questions about the details of the ATS and the process.
Very well. Yes. One thing that, you know, makes me curious, and Savitri, this is more for you, and I would like to know from you. In the past also, we've had many children who have qualified and have attended, you know, been identified as gifted. What about those students who have taken these tests? You know, where are they? How have they fared? Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so those that have actually, been in the top 15 percentile, we've had many of them register and participate in these workshops. Whether it was in Dubai, whether in Manipal, we've had them. And let me actually show you a video in response to your question. I think that's better.
I have been taking the acid test since grade 4. You should take this test because you can find out so much about yourself. I learned to be careful in each question and just to look at it thoroughly. Through ATS, I have been looking things more closely, like observationally, and I could improve in lots of fields. Just through ATS, the amount of opportunities I could get, like the Johns Hopkins University, I was like really amazed because I heard that university a lot. The first day onwards, everyone like knows everyone, like it's so energetic. And the teachers, they are amazing. They teach you about interesting topics that you normally don't ever like learn in class. I used to be very shy. Being in GenWise, being part of your friends as a whole, as a family, it made me come out more often. So the thing I like most about GenWise is like on the last day, everybody does not want to go home.
That's very heartwarming. I mean, you know, students firsthand sharing their experience, and it's so detailed, so specific. That was lovely. Thank you, Savitri. I think we will open up for question and answers now, because parents have poured in and there is a lot that they would still like to know. Although all three of you have shared phenomenally well all your thoughts. I'll begin with Vishnu. So Vishnu, yet again, the question is, are the courses worth it? You know, we have these complimentary courses that we are offering with the early bird registration. And just to reiterate for parents, early bird closes on 15th March. So are the courses worth it? What is the use of this gifted courses for these people who will register?
Right. Absolutely, the courses are worth it. Let me give you a glimpse of the kind of things children learn and are able to do after this. And I will also combine it with the complementary course thing. So there are different levels of these, right? Now, the gold standard here is actually the 3-week residential summer program for the younger children who are currently in grade 5 and 6. It's a 2-week residential program. So that is the gold standard. You're there, you're so many days with an instructor, and for the older children, you're choosing a certain course. It could be aero modeling, it could be AI, whatever the options are, forensic science. And if you are doing one of the online courses, like the complementary courses and online course, I'll talk a little bit more about it. See, these are worth it because they are showing you a side of the subject like nothing else. They are equipping you to think in a completely different way. For example, you take the GenAI course, right? Whether it is in the summer program or whether it is in the complementary course, how many adults have used ChatGPT or Gemini AI in an effective way to learn something? How many teachers have used it? Right? Because I have been using this day in and day out for the last 6 months. And I can tell you that if you learn to use it properly, these can be great learning assistants for a child. You can do a lot of things. If you don't know how to use it properly, you could learn all kind of nonsense. You could, because these things can hallucinate, give you wrong things. So I'll give you an example. So there was a math problem we give to children in one of these courses. And when the children look at that math problem, they don't even know which topic or chapter it is coming from, right? And sometimes children get stressed out about that. And a few parents even call us and tell us that, why are you giving such a problem? In school, they are told the procedure and then, the problem is given to them. But the beauty of this is you learn to think in unfamiliar situations. You learn to think on your own. For example, the Truth Detective course, complementary course, which is there for the grade 4 and 5 children. So you're reading something in the newspaper, you're seeing some data. Every day you are getting scammed, right? People are getting scammed. Intelligent people are getting scammed of crores of rupees. So just today I saw a Twitter post about, Yes Bank Ltd. The extra dot is there, and that is how you're getting fished on the scam. So this is the world our children are already in. Very intelligent people are getting scammed by all these things. Or, we read something in a newspaper, we think that is the truth, but then there is a counterpoint to it. So these courses are really about thinking critically on your own. How do you understand numbers? How do you, for example, the pandemic, right? Now, every child has studied compound interest after grade 7 or 8. Every adult has studied compound interest. Yet people were so surprised. They said that 1,000 to 10,000 COVID numbers, it took, so many days. So how can it reach 10,000 to 1 lakh in such a short time? But that is the nature of exponential growth. Compound interest has that. But you never developed the intuition for it because you were not... you did not do tasks, you're not taught in that way. So if you ask me if the courses are worth it, absolutely. Because the kind of thinking some of us developed, say between the ages of, most of us went through a very regular education. We did not learn to think critically. So maybe between 22 to 30, we taught ourselves, or our bosses in the corporate world coached us. So here is an opportunity for your children from the age of 12, 13 to 18, 19 to actually learn about cognitive bias, critical thinking, how to think like a mathematician, or how to write very well, how to use Pixar rules of storytelling to do a wonderful story. So there is no shortcut, right? There is no shortcut to achievement, but you can start earlier. And we are talking about starting earlier, and that is why it's absolutely worth it. Quickly on the complementary courses, the reason the complementary is one side, right? So we are incentivizing you to sign up early, take one thing. If you like it, you can pay for the other courses and so on. But there is a deeper reason for the complementary course. The deeper reason for the complementary course is this. We get calls from parents of children every week, 8 or 10 parents. Parents are saying, my child is getting frustrated in school. He's trying the higher grade textbook. He's doing this. We don't know what to do. The teacher is saying that he's not concentrating in class. So these children are hungry for more. But the problem is, unless you curate resources properly, and unless you give guidance and remove the bottlenecks as they learn something, it's a very lonely and difficult journey. So the idea of these the structure of the complementary courses, you get your curated assignment material to work on Monday, 4 or 5 days hence you submit that, you send questions to our master instructor. We look at it on a Friday. On a Saturday, we conduct a session for all these students, and it goes on like this. So the complementary courses are 5 weeks long, each week long. And we believe that many of the children here are very hungry for learning. And this is something they will learn how to learn on their own. They will have access to a master instructor. And once we get feedback from you after August, September on these courses, we are most probably going to launch a year-round course. So it's not just one summer event, and you have support throughout the year.
Thanks, Vishnu. And I think we've hit the closing time, but I think parents, with your permission, because there are so many questions still lined up, I'm going to take the liberty of stretching this by another 10 minutes. And I'll see how many answers questions we can answer in that time. So Sridhar, coming to you, and Vishnu mentioned, he was explaining details of these courses. One question that we have is, why are you not conducting these tests offline? Also, could you tell me that, how efficient are MCQ questions to be able to identify giftedness and that we are not using any subjective questions there?
Yeah, good questions. I'll answer both of them. So, when we were planning the program for this year, we actually thought that we should do it offline. We said, okay, now COVID is over, and kind of let's also get back to the center. So this is what we used to do some years back. I mean, many years ago, we used to have children coming and writing the tests on paper. Then we had children coming to centers and taking the test on a computer. Then COVID happened, and everyone that changed things. But then we realized that just the convenience, and thanks to online proctoring, which has become really good. So that is the reason why we find that the convenience, the cost, whether you are in India or in Dubai or in another of the UAE, if you have to come to a center, there is an effort, there is a safety issue, there is a time issue, there is the child coming again, because you see, you can't come once and take 4 tests or 3 tests. You have to come and then come the next day. So we all realized that the earlier mode, which was convenient and which was good in its own way, is very, very inconvenient today towards, if I can do a reliable test at home, and I don't know if all of you have seen a kind of an online assessment where a lot of checks are done. You kind of show that, you're alone in the room. This is also getting better and better. So if there is some background noise, if there's a second person, if there's a phone, the system is able to detect it. So we are very confident that, the test is conducted fairly, and it is convenient for the child and the parent. And, you don't have to worry, you don't have to think, okay, your child has gone out, it's not a stress to just take the test. So that is why we have found that the online method is, in fact, we even thought that, we'll give both options. You can do it online or offline. But all the data suggested that if we did that, we'll have 20 people coming to the center and everyone else choosing to do it online. But we'd love to hear your feedback on that. The next question was about MCQ questions. So, interestingly, all these higher level tests, these assessments that happen, except a few that, Vishnu mentioned, where, you kind of literally spend many hours observing a child, get them to talk to them. It's not just about writing. You can actually talk to them and assess them. But many of these higher level assessments that are done for a large number of students are MCQ based tests. And I think, with ASSET, like we have a lot of experience in this. And ASSET is a good example. We've been told this by many Western researchers and universities, including Duke University, that the ability of these questions to identify talent in children is extremely high. So yes, MCQs actually work better, because if children have to write answers and then you have to correct it, and people are expressing it in different ways, whereas here you have very clear patterns that show good performance. So yes, that has been tested and found to be an accurate way of identifying giftedness.
I'm going to keep you here a little longer, Sridhar. There is a follow-up question that I have for you. So what happens if my child does not qualify in the top 15% of the ATS? That's one. And, if for a compelling reason, someone misses out on the test dates, which is 28th March to 31st March, is there a possibility to write the test at a later time?
So let me take the second question first. We don't expect to have this, like we are kind of sticking to the dates. Partly it's just to be fair to everybody else, and also to meet the timelines. You saw that we want to give the results on April 7th. We want to have the whole process unless we give you the results on time, you cannot start thinking of and planning for the summer courses and so on. So we don't expect to be able to accommodate, and that's why there is a 4-day window. So, one never knows, like suppose there are floods for 2 days and things like that, but we don't expect, unless there are exceptional circumstances, to change the dates or to extend that time. So please plan around those times, because I think that's the opportunity that you're going to get. Sorry, Lipi, was there a second question which I forgot?
So what happens if children write the ATS exam and do not qualify in the top 15%?
Very interesting question. So the different programs, and please go to the websites of, if you go to our website, you can see which are the partner universities. We shared that here too. But all these different partner universities have different types of courses. Some of those courses are, for those who come in the top 15%. But there are universities which say that as long as you have come in the top 50%, you can do the course. So I think this really tells, remember that if you are in the top 20% or top 25%, you are actually in the top 20% of the top 15%, right? So top 20% to top 15% means you're in the top 3% of your group. So now, unfortunately, all these courses also have their capacities. So GenWise has capacity, Johns Hopkins has capacity, and that is why we take the top 15% of the top 15%. So if your child comes below the top 15%, they are still, very much in that gifted range. There are some options available. Some of them have online courses which are available to children at, who've come, like I said, even the top 50 percentile. So there are a number of options. And of course, the child should try again, because the next year, because giftedness does kind of have its, you do have children who kind of develop at a slightly later stage and so on. So that's what I would say. It's all of these we have to see these as ways of encouraging children, identifying their strengths and helping them achieve the best in what they're doing.
Thank you. And I think early on, you also mentioned it's about the exposure. And, this is one way to also give them a chance to even go out there, take a chance, test themselves. Right. So Savitri, coming to you, we have a lot of queries around the test registration fee, which is 250 dirhams, right? This seems a little steep. What's your thought around it?
So, Lipi, I would say, just as Vishnu explained about, are the courses worth it? I would say the same thing about the test. Is it worth it? I think we've gone through the entire hour talking about why ATS is worth your time, why you should give your child that experience, right? And what do you get for that 250 dirhams? For those who know, for those who've already registered, you know that you actually get access to those complementary courses that Vishnu described in such detail, right? And we have just 2 days for the early bird to expire. So that's 15th of March. So you actually get for 250 dirhams, it's not only your entry to write the asset talent search, but also to access one of these extremely well-crafted and designed programs, which are actually, I don't think Vishnu actually mentioned that. It's about anywhere between 300 to 600 dirhams. Courses are worth that. If you're paying, if you are looking at accessing it at any other time. So this is a special offer that we're giving for students. If you pay by a certain date, you are able to access it. So if you ask me, 250 dirhams is not expensive, because you actually get to access those courses which are quite expensive otherwise, right? I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you so much to all three of you, Savitri, Sridhar, and Vishnu, for being amazing on our panel. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, parents. I think at this note, we will close today's session. Thank you for being a lovely audience. If there are questions which are yet not answered and you would like further details to them, please contact us on the email ID that we shared with you. We will put it out on the chat as well. We will share it with you over WhatsApp messages. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening and a great night ahead.
Thank you all.
Thank you.